TellyCast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby and welcome to another TellyCast. Is now the time for crowdfunding to play a significant role in the world of content funding and distribution? Well, my guest this week certainly thinks so. Welcome to TellyCast, Paul Scanlan from Hollywood crowdfunding equity business Legion M, billed as the world's first fan-owned entertainment company. Paul, welcome to TellyCast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to have you here. You've interrupted your holiday to come and talk to us on TellyCast. Which
happy to do so. We love being in London, and I'm excited to be on your show. So thank you for having me.
And you're over from the Bay Area, right?
Yep, Bay Area. Yep, we're over here for a friend's wedding, and thought we'd do a little business while we're here. Might as well.
Good. Perfect. Okay. Well, I was at South by Southwest earlier this year, and I became aware of Legion M. I became fascinated about it. So I'm really glad that we finally got the chance to sit down and have a chat. So for everybody that doesn't know about Legion M, just explain the concept behind Legion M.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you did a pretty good job with your intro there, but we call ourselves the world's first fan-owned entertainment company. And what that means is we're literally owned by a vibrant and engaged community of entertainment fans. We're not owned by Wall Street. We're not owned by a bank or one individual wealthy investor. We're owned by a community. And what that means, and our kind of purpose with starting this company, is that we can back projects that the community wants to see made. And one of the things that I think we all kind of take for granted is, that we have this choice of content to watch. And that's really important. That's the freedom of choice. But what most people never really realize is that the content that gets made and that green light process, that process is controlled by a small group of people. It's not a community of people deciding what gets made. It's, it's a handful of the top brass in Hollywood that decide what gets made. And, when we started Legion M, we just felt like, well, there's got to be a better way. Since the dawn of the entertainment industry, there's always been this gigantic wall between those who make the content and those who watch the content. And we call it the gates to Hollywood. The gates to Hollywood have always been closed, and fans are on the outside, and the insiders are making the decisions and deciding what gets made. And, we're here to open those gates and to have a positive impact on the industry as a whole, because we believe that an entertainment company that's owned by fans, has freedom to take bigger risks, that we don't need to be stuck, retreading existing franchises. We can actually have our built-in audience is our community, but that community isn't tied to one specific IP. It's not a Star Wars, community. It's not a Star Trek community. It's a fan community, a film lover community, and they want to see everything. And so it's been really exciting. Yeah, we've been around for many years, and it's growing faster than ever.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the figures on your website that you've raised over $19 million, more than 45,000 investors.
Yeah, update on those numbers. We're over 20 million from over 50,000 investors. And, like I said earlier, it's, we're growing faster than ever. Our goal is to get to 1 million. And if you think about that, and it's built into our logo. I don't have a picture of it right now, but our logo is an M with the bar over it. We're Legion M, and the M with the bar is the Roman numeral for 1 million, because that is our objective. Our objective is to unite 1 million entertainment fans to co-own the company and take over Hollywood. But take over Hollywood, not in a bad way, but in a nice and positive way where, we can allow Hollywood to take more chances. And, Hollywood, let's face it, I mean, most of the major content companies are owned by Wall Street. And so they are stuck delivering to the bottom line and, making safe bets. And in the creative content industry, safe bets isn't always the most creative and original thing to do.
Yeah.
And so, I think to a certain degree, the industry is really, for the most part, welcoming, a concept like this. I mean, we've had a warm reception to Legion M, and especially as we started to prove it out and, are really delivering on like really high value projects. I think in the early days, a lot of it was like, oh, a fan-owned entertainment company. I could see that. Like, they're just going to do like little stupid content from fans or whatever. And it's like, No, that's not the case. I mean, we're making movies with Morgan Freeman and Ed Harris and winning the audience award at South by Southwest. Like, we're making legit content. We're just doing it a different way. And
so tell us about the community then. Yep. So over 50,000 investors, you've said. Now, is that a project, or is it, I mean, you talk about the first fan-owned entertainment company. Yep. Mm-hmm. So does a fan invest in the overall business and all projects, or just one particular project at a time?
They have a choice. So, and it's a great question. So the 50,000 investors are investors in Legion M as a production company, becoming a studio. And that's the number where I'm talking about getting to 1 million. We want 1 million shareholders of the company that own shares in the company as we continue to build value in the company and eventually maybe take it public or, do what our plan is. I mean, the investment in the company, the typical investment there averages about $400. It's equity crowdfunding. UK was one of the leaders in equity crowdfunding with Crowdcube and all the success that you've had. The US was, lagged behind the UK. And it's really interesting because, part of it was stemmed from, me living here and kind of experiencing that and seeing, and then moving back to the United States and wondering, why don't we have this? And at that same time, legislation was going through our Congress to update our rules so that we could allow it. And Legion M was literally one of the very first to file with the SEC, because we're still SEC regulated, but to become the first equity crowdfunding company in the United States. And we're really proud of that, because for us, we believe in it as a disruptive business model, not just in the entertainment space, but in any space. And, we're proud of what we've accomplished so far. So when investors invest in Legion M, they own a share in the company. There could be in the future dividends or anything like that. But, what we tell people is, don't invest more than you can afford to lose. It's you're investing in a startup in the entertainment space. Statistically, the odds are stacked against us. Now, we're obviously investing our time and energy in our careers because we believe we can defy those odds and go on and create something that's truly special. And if you can imagine the average investor putting $400 in, at $1 million, we'll have raised $400 million, not $20 million, but $400 million to invest in projects that have 1 million people emotionally and financially invested in them. And we just believe that is really something that the entertainment industry needs. And there could be multiple different companies like that. I think there'll be space for that. But we also, starting about 2 years ago, we also allow our community the opportunity to invest in a discrete project. So a lot of our projects, will go through a traditional process of raising finance or doing a backstop deal or, doing tax credits with, all the things that producers creatively do to finance a movie. But one other tool in our chest that we have is that we can always go to our community, and we can go to our community and say, hey, you know what, we're starting this movie. Do you guys want to invest directly in it? If you want to, we'll give you first dibs. And then, once we've raised that, then we'll go out. We don't do it for every project. It really just depends. If we sold a TV series to a buyer, then, there's really not a need to go to the community. And the reason we did that is because everything we do revolves around our community. We're always asking them, like, well, what else should we be doing? And what else are you interested in? And this came up, and, our community said, hey, you're raising finance for these films. Like, can we invest directly in those films? Because that investment is very different, right? So now you're not investing in a startup that may or may not, have an event at some point. You're investing in a project. Yeah. Still risky. And we tell people, like, it's still not a safe place for your retirement. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose again. But, now the time frame is much different. We have investors that have invested in projects where, within the 2-year span that I'm talking about, we're already kind of preparing to send them money.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's an important point, isn't it? Because normal crowdfunding projects that listeners and viewers may be aware of, they're the sort of projects that you get access, you get merchandising, you get experiences, which is part of your investment.
Right.
But when it comes to Legion M, you actually potentially get not only equity, but actually you can earn from it.
You get paid.
Yeah, you
absolutely.
Get that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's the difference between crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding means you're actually a participant in the upside, if there's upside. And, just as another warning, a lot of these projects can be risky, but if there is upside, then, we have a model that we call fan first financing, and our fans, they're the first to recoup, and so they will recoup in a first position. And then after that, then, we would share in the revenue and everything like that. But, when we did this, the first project we did this with was our William Shatner doc, which we just released. It was in theaters. It's released here with Signature in the UK. Docs don't always get theatrical releases. I think it was the top performing documentary in the United States this year. And that project was really interesting because William Shatner, he's joined our advisory board. He's an amazing person. We're fans of his. We got to know him. We're not like hardcore fans or anything. We have people in our community that are that way. But when we met him and started to get to know him, we really understood what a fascinating individual he was. And so we had asked him, like, hey, has anyone ever made a documentary? We talked to our community. Hey, would you guys be interested in it? The answer was, oh, yeah, that would be amazing. So then we knew, all right, so we need to raise, money to make this documentary. We had an offer. We had two offers from the kind of traditional space to that, like, people were, oh, you guys are making the William Shatner doc? We'll pay for it. Can we be the lead investor? How much money do you need? Doing all that. And we said, well, we appreciate that, but hold off for a minute, because we told our community that they might have a chance. So maybe we go out to our community and we see how much of the film we can raise just by going to them. And then whatever's left over, we'll come back and we'll make it a joint venture. Well, we did an email to our community, and in just 4 days, we completely sold out. We had more money than we needed to make the movie. Wow. And we cut it off because, we didn't want to raise more money than we needed because we still have to pay them back. But it blew us away. It was, well, I'll just tell you because it's public information. We raised $750,000 in 4 days with 2 emails. And it was super fun. And our community, they, their names are in the credits. They got to come to the premiere. We just finished when we did our theatrical release in the United States. And actually, I think we did a little bit of that over here as well. We took it on tour with Bill. And so, many of those investors got to meet Bill, walk the red carpet, like do these, when we were talking about this before, like they have a financial interest. Like it's important to focus on that. But just like crowdfunding, they're also part of something. Yeah. They're getting that emotional ROI of they helped make that movie happen. And when it released, they're out there celebrating and being a part of it with us.
Well, it's really sort of tapping into fandom, isn't it?
But even people that weren't like, big William Shatner fans, and one of the things that we're really proud of with our movie is, if you're not a William Shatner fan, you're still going to come away liking the movie. And it also played at South by Southwest. And, we had Shatner on Jimmy Kimmel, Kelly Clarkson, the Today Show.
Was this before or after he went up to space with Blue Origin?
Good question. So we shot it right after. And, he joined our advisory board right before he went up into space. And then when he came back, we started this conversation.
Right.
In the time frame, this was kind of interesting. The time frame of us deciding to do the doc, which was really just, Bill was open-minded to it. He said, well, no one's I've been pitched a million times, but I've never really found the right vibe and the right kind of con. And we said, well, we have a director that we've worked with that, we think would be amazing. We want to put the two of you together. And so we had a lunch and they hit it off. And by the end of that lunch, Bill said, yeah, let's do this. This sounds fun. I want to go do it. Bill's really happy, by the way. The guy is so interesting and fun. Alexander O'Philippe is our director. He did an amazing job with the film. The time frame from us having that lunch to raising the capital, shooting the film, premiering it at South by Southwest is about a span of a year. So in a lot of ways, this community, what it also can do is it just sort of shortcuts this process, right? Yeah. Because if the community, we had asked them in advance, are you interested in this project? The answer was yes. So then we go put it together and then they finance it. And so that could be 6 months of time as a producer trying to raise the capital and hearing a lot of no's and finding, people that actually are willing to invest. And so yeah, it's been, that was our first project, and now it's been released. It's on, VOD now, and we haven't announced a SVOD home for it yet, but yeah, we're really proud of it. And it's been an amazing process. And then the second movie that we also have given our community an opportunity to invest in, again, they blew us away. In that movie, we thought we would raise $1 million. It's a bigger movie with Morgan Freeman, Ed Harris, Sonequa Martin Green, Natalie Morales, Gloria Rubin, Akash Ambakar. I mean, that movie, the doc was kind of our warm up, right? Because we knew it wasn't that expensive to do. And, we figured our community would at least help us put a big...
It's a safe bet, right, as well.
It was a safe bet. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's a pretty safe bet because we didn't spend a lot of money. And William Shatner, I mean, he's amazing. Yeah. That project is, that's the definitive documentary on William Shatner. We'll be monetizing for, 30 years or more. Yeah, maybe longer. But so this next movie, we had some more traditional investors, including Travis Kelce, by the way, which came in Mr. Taylor Swift. Yeah. By the way, he was not even dating Taylor Swift when he invested. I think he was like talking about, and trying to get into one of her concerts or something. But that he's just blown up. It's amazing. But so in that film, again, we started raising the capital before we had Morgan Freeman attached. I think maybe we had Ed Harris. We had talked to the community about the film, and they were, overwhelmingly positive about the movie. And I don't know if you heard anything about the movie at South by. It ended up winning the Audience Award. It's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes from really strong reviewed film. It's very moving. It got multiple rounds of standing ovations at South by. We sold out the Paramount Theater on Saturday night. I mean, it was insane. I couldn't, it was a very moving experience.
What's the title again?
It's called My Dead Friend Zoe.
Right, okay.
And it's an important film. I mean, it's a great entertaining project, right? It's a dark comedy. It's funny. It's sad. It's all those emotions. But it's also about something really important, which is, it's presenting veterans in a different. The writer and director of this film is a guy named Kyle Hausman Stokes, who is an absolute force to reckon with and a visionary director. He wrote and directed this film, and it's really kind of a reflection of his personal experience in a very vulnerable way. And it's really refreshing because you're seeing veterans in a way that we don't often see veterans. They're typically either the hero or the broken soldier. And, this is just totally different. It's also female veterans. And so when we talked to our community, they said, oh, this movie sounds like really something we should back. And when we put it out to them to invest in, once again, they just completely blew us away. We ended up raising 3/4 of the film's budget. And we already had the other piece of it from this other investor, including from Radiant Media Studios, which is where Travis had invested through. So yeah, and same thing. That time frame from the time we met Kyle and saw his short and kind of got the sort of, feedback from our community that this would be a project they'd be interested in, raised the finance, cast the movie, shot it, and it was right at the, literally before the SAG strike. I mean, we finished shooting, we wrapped the day before the SAG strike started. And it was hilarious because, the strike got extended. So we did. It was really, and we're really proud of the movie. I mean, it's next week, depending on when this airs, hopefully we'll be announcing our distribution. Right. So we're finalizing that now, working on the press release. It's going to be a theatrical release in the United States. And then we've got a big partner looking at it for rest of the world. So, yeah.
So it'll be theatrical in the States and probably
it depends.
The rest of the year.
There might be some territories that would do a theatrical, theatrical release for it. I mean, it's got a great cast. Yeah. And it's got great reviews and, has awards potential.
So for these two projects then, for the William Shatner documentary, is that recouped now?
We had it in theaters 2 months ago. Yeah. So we just started monetizing it. So we're in the process of preparing, doing all the financials.
Going through the windows.
We're going through the windows and we'll be kind of remitting to our community in probably a few months' time. Before the end of the year, we'll be remitting, the first check, the first of what will hopefully be many checks.
Right. Okay. And so how many projects in total? You've talked about 2 which are made, but how many projects in total then have you essentially funded through this process?
That's a great question. So as we were kind of building the company and growing the company, this part of our tool chest that allows us to raise capital explicitly for a project is fairly new.
Yeah.
That's something that we didn't implement until the William Shatner doc. We did apply it to one other opportunity a few years ago, but it was someone else's project. So, we've been involved, Legion M's been a part of 15 different film releases, including the, cult classic Mandy, the Nick Cage movie from Panos Cosmatos. And, we've been a part of a lot of different films, but those were movies where we were either making an investment or, co-producing or coming in as a co-production. What we've kind of graduated to, I guess, is, we'll continue to do that. We're always on the hunt for interesting projects that our community would like.
You essentially scout. You've got your
scout our community scouts.
Right.
There are projects that have come to us from our community. I mean, when you think about it, one of the advantages that Legion M has is that we have this incredible community, and they're engaged, and they're, we're so grateful to them because it's really, they are the epicenter of the company, and they are, our superpower. And they're not just there to help us make projects successful. They are there to guide us. And that's genuine. We genuinely go to them and let them, and it's been very organic that way where, when we started it, we thought, this community, we're probably going to end up in some narrow lane where we have a community of horror fans, for example, and all they want is horror movies, and that's what we do. And, we're grateful because that's not the case. Our community is very open-minded. One of our biggest projects, the most ambitious project that we have, is a project that came to us from our community. And, when it's fully blossomed, it's still in kind of development right now, but I'll tell you about it because it's public, what we've been doing with it. When we're releasing that film and maybe accepting an Academy Award for it, that will be the best prototype for what we want Legion M to represent. Because it's genuinely a film that, I'd never even heard of the individual. Most people hadn't, and our community called on us. And, they can do that in a lot of different ways. They can send us emails. We answer every email. But in this case, it bubbled up through our Facebook group. We have a very active Facebook group. We're on all the social media, and most of our community is there. And, what's interesting about the Facebook group is someone can propose something, and then before we have to really do anything, we can just see how everyone else responds. And if everyone else responds in a positive way, then, we'll get more involved and, do something. If no one responds or people are like, no, that's not interesting, then, we don't have to do anything. Yeah. In this case, someone had posted about a guy named Robert Smalls. I don't know if you've ever heard this name before. And it was a meme that had been going around the internet that was really kind of in a funny way, kind of complaining about how Hollywood keeps retreading, existing franchises and making pitch perfect movies. But, there's this real true American hero whose story has never been told. And when I tell you about this individual, you're going to be, how do I not know this person's name? And it might be a little different here in the UK, but in the United States, still most people have never heard of him. And that's what we want to change. But so Robert Smalls was an enslaved man working on a Confederate warship in the Charleston Harbor during the Civil War. So he was, just think of the irony of that. He's working as a slave, defending slavery, basically. And, his backstory is really interesting as well. But so one night in, what has to be the most daring heist in the history of man, he stole the ship that he was working on, commandeered it, filled it with other enslaved family members and friends, and sailed it to freedom. Passed Fort Sumter, through all the checkpoints, had to go through the blockade, surrendered it to the North. When he surrendered it to the North, they had lined the ship with gunpowder because they knew that if they got caught, they were just going to blow themselves up. And if they couldn't surrender it, they would do the same thing. I mean, this is how, the stakes were high, right? They had, they were just not living an authentic, free life and wanted to, go for it. And so this brave individual, took it upon himself and, risked his life and everyone else's life to make it happen. When they surrendered the boat, Lincoln met with him. President Lincoln met with him, made him an evangelist to help recruit Blacks to fight on behalf of the North, which is, as most historians know, that's how the North ended up winning the war. Frankly, it was a huge component of it. Lincoln then made him a captain of the ship that he stole and flagged it as a Northern ship. He sailed in 17 naval battles on behalf of the North. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
As a captain, first Black captain in the U.S. military. Then he moves back after the war. He moves back south, buys his former slave master's plantation, becomes one of the first Black congressmen, starts the first public school system in the United States, takes care of the ailing wife of his former slave master who was homeless at the time, brought her in, took care of her. I mean, the guy is just incredible.
Yeah.
And yet most Americans have never even heard of him. He's not like a Martin Luther King or a name that we're all familiar with. We should be,
And so what's the project then?
So what an amazing project, right?
Yeah.
So so this came bubbling up and our community said, oh, can we make this movie? And we're always very pragmatic because we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So we always take a very cautious approach. How hard it is to make content and to get a very ambitious project like that. I mean, that would, this was a couple years ago. So we said, look, we love this idea. We love this project. Just to be straight, this is not an easy lift, but we will see what we can do. We'll put our energy into it and see what can happen. And so we started formulating a plan. It turned out that someone else in our community had actually written a script. A guy named Robert Blake Whitehill, who's a published author. And, so we had a script and we started attaching, various people. We attached Bill Duke, who's one of our advisors. I don't know if you know Bill. He's a very well-known actor and producer and director and, an amazing guy. And so we met with him and he kind of, we sort of, were developing it together and getting his feedback. And then we added Marvin Jones. We brought in Rob Edwards, who's the screenwriter of Princess and the Frog and Treasure Planet and Academy Award nominated screenwriter. And then we also separately decided that this is such an important story. There's not a lot of IP about it. He's mentioned in some books and there's a Wikipedia page and there's a small little museum in Charleston, but, really no one's ever done a kind of researched study. And so that's what we did. And we're publishing a graphic novel. I can send you the digital copy of the first comic book. So we've broken it out. We're telling
so
stories.
You're starting with a graphic novel. And
Yep.
so you're building what we often talk about on TellyCast is the octopus strategy, is basically building out different projects from that central IP to build awareness and build the project over time. Okay, interesting.
And so that becomes the underlying IP. Right. And with that in hand and a script and, now we're in the process of attaching an A-list director and starting to cast the Robert Smalls role, then we'll take that out to Hollywood. But the other interesting thing about just doing the graphic novel approach, I mean, we have schools and libraries already ordering the books and volumes, and we haven't even finished it yet. But so what's really cool about it is that our community, this is a big project. This isn't a raise $1 million or raise even $5 million. This is probably a $40 to $50 million budget project. We're not going to raise that kind of money with our community. Not yet. I mean, at some point we will be able to easily. But today, what we can do is raise enough money to publish the graphic novel. And so we did a Kickstarter. We brought in some of the top Black comic book artists. We brought in a Harvard history professor We have Robert Small's family involved.
Right.
So his great-grandson, who is running for the congressional seat that his great-grandfather held, amazing guy, Michael Bulwer Moore. He's been intimately involved and sharing all the like family information, including like the original like deed, his slave deed, and all this like amazing access, and has just been so supportive of the project. And so, yeah, now that's what we're doing. And so we've just shared the first comic book, and, we'll, in the coming months, hopefully by Comic-Con in July, we'll be making some announcements, because we're not waiting to complete all of the graphic novels. Ultimately, there'll be 3 volumes, 12 total comic books that we'll put out that tell, his whole story. But in parallel, we're already setting up the film, and we have so much interest in it. It's just been...
I can imagine. As you say, it's a great story. So let's just, for the producers that are listening and anybody else in the business of IP, and what kind of projects are ideal for crowdfunding then, from your perspective? And are there any ways that producers can get in touch with you? Because presumably you mentioned it's scripted and unscripted, and it could be TV as well as it being, movies. Yep.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say for Legion M, we're really wide open. We have this big historical project. We just did a movie about veterans, but we also have a adult animated comedy series that we're pitching right now.
So you're open for pitches, essentially, for producers to come up with
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're, like, just to set kind of expectations, we don't do that many projects. And, in this space, there's like an infinite number of pitches. That's another part of our community and our model that we intend to sort of figure out. Right? Is right now it's kind of an organic process. I mentioned the Defiant Robert Smalls project bubbled up through our Facebook group. Other projects will come to us through like someone we know and one of our advisors, like my dead friend Zoe. Other projects are, born by us and kind of vetted by our community. But I would say, the cool thing about it is that our community has been so wide open to, they don't want us swimming in one lane. They want a kind of diverse slate. But to answer your question, the things that are really what I've seen make the biggest difference is anything with, if you have big names attached, like having William Shatner, and having a business model that seems viable, right? And in that case, like, don't overspend, docs are hard to monetize. So, finding that sweet spot. But
and it would be American audiences, essentially, because I imagine most of your investors are based in the States.
We have a worldwide community, but the majority of people are still in the United States. But it's something that we intend to change.
Okay.
It'll always be probably some large percentage of our community is going to be in the United States, but we actually have a lot of people from the UK and from Europe and even in Asia. There's nothing stopping people from investing. There are a handful of countries where we're not allowed to take investments, but most of them are just wide open.
Right.
What we aren't allowed to do in a lot of countries is we're not allowed to market directly in those countries. So someone would have to hear about us, but we don't do any like explicit marketing.
Okay.
But to answer your original question, projects that have purpose, that communities purpose. And, it's one of the things that our company has a purpose. And the reason we're uniting this vibrant and engaged community together is because we want to change an industry that we love. And individually, none of us really have the power to do that. We can talk about things, and we might, if we get accomplished enough, we might be able to put a small dent in it. But when we come together is where the real power comes. And when you have that kind of power, then you have the responsibility to enact change. And so I would say a lot of the projects that work the best are projects that are entertaining and have a business model to them, but also have a purpose and might be important or impactful. And it's kind of, it was a little too far back, but we were really sad to see participant media go away. And, it's a tragedy really for the industry. And I'm still stupefied as to like why it just is like disappearing. But when I get to my hero section, we'll talk about it a little more.
Right.
But I feel like there's a void there, that they're going to leave behind a void. But in a lot of ways, that void can be filled by a community like Legion M, and it might even be more authentic. So instead of being an impact driven, production company or studio, that's where there's one wealthy individual deciding what impact, maybe make it a community, right? Where the community decides what is impactful. So it's there's no agenda. It's literally just a reflection of what a broad base of people want to see made. And it's one of the things that we pride ourselves on in our community is that we're not political. We haven't united a bunch of, a specific type of party or individual or politics. We try to stay away from that. We want to kind of bring people together and unify, communities based around something we all have in common that we love and, get those conversations going.
So what else about Legion M can you tell us then?
Yeah, one other thing that I think is really important to share is that we don't require you to make an investment in Legion M to join our community. And in fact, so we have 50,000 investors. We have over 300,000 people in our community. And the reason we do that is that we want people to genuinely understand what we're all about and what we're doing. We don't want that gatekeeper to be like, oh, if you give us your money.
Well, you want opinion, don't you?
Exactly. Well, and we want opinion and what's really been wonderful about it is that we have a lot of families that have invested, and it might be one individual, a parent or something that, bought the shares, but the whole family is participating. And so they can join for free. So they're, updated. They know what's going on. They're getting all the emails. They're participating in the polls and the surveys because they're part of our audience. And just because one individual in the family bought the shares doesn't mean that everybody shouldn't have a vote. And so, yeah, I think, so that's important to share. I would also say that, we're growing faster than ever. It's not, like a lot of times when we're talking about it, sometimes I get the feeling that people are like, oh, that's cool. I wish I'd known so I could be a part of the community. No, it's like we have 50,000 people as investors. Our goal is 1 million. We plan to grow dramatically over the next couple of years. Some of the most interesting things Legion M is going to do. We're really proud of what we've done, but we're laddering up. Now is actually probably the best time to join our community and get involved because everything we're doing is bigger and better than it was, in the past.
And now it's time for Story of the Week, where Paul gets to choose the TV or content industry story of the last 7 days that's caught his eye. Paul, what's your story of the week?
So my story of the week is something that I think is fascinating, scary, and important. And it is Fable Studios' introduction of their showrunner, what they're calling the Netflix of AI, where as an individual, using their tools, I can create customized content for myself. And it could be based on an IP. The original first one they did was South Park, which makes sense because South Park is an easy, animation kind of style to replicate and that AI could do. And, I've seen the episode that was, what they had created with AI, and it's, it's not fully there, but it's compelling. It's really compelling. And so the reason I chose that story is I feel like as a kind of early adopter of technologies, keep in mind my background, I was at the very early phases of streaming. And I vividly remember being kind of almost laughed at for ever suggesting that streaming would ultimately compete with broadcast. And, there were entrenched, high-paid, senior leadership at the time that just couldn't see that. It was just dismissed outright. And, that was 20 years ago. And, here we are, and it's happened. And, that was something that, my early company, Moby TV, played a role in that. And it was something that I always felt like, oh, that's a positive change. I think this could be good for the entertainment industry and provide more access and more choice and everything else. And I still feel that way. I want to be that same kind of youthful, optimistic early adopter. And, AI and content I'm conflicted on it, frankly. I'm so fascinated by what the potential is. And as a production company that's creating content, of course, we want to understand it. And, to the extent that it's ethical, like use it in certain ways. And, and the industry is a lot of people would describe as like a tumultuous time. And we're all looking for kind of new tools and new ways to kind of help us navigate like some of the turmoil. But I'm also, and it's weird because in a lot of technologies, and I feel like I don't want to be like, sound like my dad, like, oh, these new technologies and where are they going to take us? What is the world coming to? And, what's interesting is like, I hang around a lot of young people too, and I'm older now. And so to a certain degree, I feel like, well, it's just normal. Like I have a little more, this is probably how those people that were a little worried about streaming, how they felt. They just couldn't see it. And I don't know, but even young people are worried about this, force of AI and what's going to happen. And so anyway, I just think it's an interesting thing to talk about and discuss and debate. And, doing my damnedest to be optimistic about it, because I am, but I'd be lying to say that, I'm not worried about where it will take us. I think it's going to be, there are strange days ahead.
Yeah. Well, also, I know Showrunner is a very early concept of a product, but there's going to be lots more, right? And they're going to be,
look at the
I can imagine
rate
over
of
the
technology and how quickly. And that was the thing, like with streaming, I think the reason why people weren't like seeing it is the streaming we were showing at the time wasn't anywhere near what it is today. It was like a fast slideshow of, content.
Yeah.
And, but you had to make that leap of faith. Like, of course, this is going to get better. There'll be better screens, better processors, faster internet. And lo and behold, now, we're streaming 4K and it's no big deal. And it's competing, you know, not just competing, it's actually sort of taking over. And so it makes me wonder, like, all right, where are we heading with this AI? Like, is it going to be a part of the content industry or is it going to take over? I sure hope it doesn't take over.
No. Well, it's something we talk about a lot on the show. So, and we will be returning to, I'm sure, very soon. And now it's time for Hero of the Week, Paul.
Oh, good. All right. Well, I have a hero. He's actually, in full disclosure, he's a friend of mine. But even if he weren't, I would still present him as my hero of the week. He is releasing a film in the United States this weekend called The Grab. I don't know if you've heard about The Grab. It premiered at Toronto at TIFF in 2022. His name is Nate Halverson. He's actually a hockey mate of mine. We played hockey together in California, and he is an investigative reporter. And I have a lot of respect for investigative reporters. They endure a lot of hardship and, risk to uncover truths and to, important truths that, society needs to be aware of because, there's a lot of things out there that we are kind of, invisible to us that we should be more aware of. And The Grab is a really fascinating film, unsettling to watch. It watches documentary, but it watches as a thriller. And it's about all the jockeying and maneuvering of governments to secure the most valuable resource on the planet, food and water. And, it's an early kind of canary in the coal mine look at like, where are we heading? We thought we fought wars over oil, and OPEC and all these, different kind of stances that governments have taken. But what's happening now is that people and governments are locking up the food and water supply and to feed their populations. And it's a great movie. It's really...
Sounds fantastic. Sounds terrifying.
It's
Sounds
terrifying.
A bit like Mad Max or something looking to the future.
But Nate's my hero of the week because he took a lot of risks to make this movie, and it's the last movie that Participant Media will be distributing with Magnolia Pictures, and it's in theaters this weekend in the United States, and I'm sure it'll get a UK release as well. It won the People's Choice Award at TIFF. It's an excellent movie.
And finally, who or what are you telling to get in the bin?
get in the bin. All right. So this is a little abstract, but, I really feel like, again, like when I dig into sort of that optimistic, part of my personality, I really like one of the things I hope and I'd love to like put in the bin is this sort of overarching sentiment where we as a society and individuals and news media and everywhere, it's rampant, are presenting opinions as facts. And so I want to throw away this concept of presenting opinions as facts. And I really hope that as a society, we can go back to understanding the difference between facts and opinion. And, it's interesting because I think when you lose that distinction, your facts are based on your opinions. And so you're not looking for facts because you're forming your facts from your own opinions instead of finding the facts and forming your opinion. Mm-hmm. And, I think there's a lot of contributors to this kind of pandemic that we have as a society. I mean, I think it can't be understated the impact that it's having on us as a society. I mean, if you look at politically, but also just, how well do we get along with each other? There isn't this, notion of people don't some people do, but a lot of people have a very hard time having any kind of healthy argument or debate because they're so entrenched in their own facts based on their opinions. And so I would like for everyone to reverse engineer that. This is not, don't form your opinion or don't form your facts based on your opinions. Get the actual facts. Yeah. And form an opinion.
And healthy debate.
And listen.
And somebody that doesn't agree with you isn't the enemy.
Exactly.
It's very possible to have a friend who you disagree with, right?
100%. That's how we coexist.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah. No, things are really seeming to polarize a little bit more at the moment.
Yeah.
So
it's too bad.
I'm sure we're going to see that. The number of elections that are happening over this year, I'm sure we're going to be seeing more and more of that.
It's going to get, maybe, it's more likely to get worse before it gets better. But I hope that we reach a point where it's just so obvious. Because even, me as a kind of, thoughtful observer, I don't necessarily feel like any news outlet gives me the real news. Yeah. I feel like if I want to get information, part of that is just the dynamic of, this pull down notion of news media. Like that's how it is. And if people aren't engaging with it, then, it's not going to get seen. And the only way to get engagement is to make it sensationalized. Yeah. Right? And so the news media falls into this trap of, well, I got to present it in a way. And, but it's happening on both sides. It's like both sides feel like the other side. And in sides, I'm thinking side of anything. It could be political sides. It could be sides on, other issues, religion or whatever.
Yeah. I was watching the storming of the Capitol and I was flicking between the different US news channels and that was scary. Yeah. The different commentary that was happening at the same time. It was widely different as opposed to pure factual.
This is what happened. Yeah.
Well, that's it. It's maybe public service broadcasting is due a bigger role in U.S. society.
Well, and this may sound, honestly, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but like for me as an American, actually one of my most trusted news sources is the BBC. Yeah. I actually think the BBC does a pretty genuinely good job at like reporting on.
It's not perfect, but it's the best that we've got. I think
it's better than some of the others.
Yeah, it is. Paul, thank you very much for coming on TellyCast. Really enjoyed having you on the show. Really fascinating to hear about Legion M. Good luck with all of those projects you talked about, with the Shatner project, with the new film that's in development, the graphic novel as well, and everything else you're doing. Yep. Paul, thank you so much for coming on TellyCast.
All right, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Well, that's about it for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. TellyCast was produced by Spirit Studios and recorded in London. For videos featuring the movers and shakers of the TV and digital content industries, don't forget to subscribe to TellyCast. Just search TellyCast TV on YouTube or hit the link in the episode description and hit subscribe. We'll see you next week for another show. Until then, stay safe.